Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video in the series for easy soulful bends in A major. This melody reminds me so much of 90s Allman Brothers music with Dicky and Warren Haynes, songs like Soul Shine, where you got some major sounds and bends that are soulful, really great chord tone, conflict resolution in it. It's just a good melody. In the link of this description, you're going to find a $3 PDF that outlines this melody note for note with all of the left-hand fingering and tablature. You're also going to get backing tracks in this video that are the backing track that I'm playing along with the guitar, bass, and all of that, and a backing track with just the drums, because that's important to have when you're practicing. In this video, video 1, we are going over methods on how to memorize all of the content. I give you exercises and ways to truly master these melodies and internalize them so that you enhance your own melodic content. In video 2 in the series, I go into methods for taking this content and being creative with it. I want to give a shout out to all of you who are leaving tips in the tip jar to help me stay sustainable here on YouTube and as a private instructor. If you're interested in private lessons, hit me up at bobby@thehallsofmusic.com, and don't forget to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. All right, so I want to give a disclaimer before we get into breaking these melodies down into its individual pieces. This melody has heartfelt bends. It's a soulful sounding melody. There's a certain amount of emotion and disregard for intellectual concepts that comes into action with this sort of music. I've heard some players say, you know, when you're playing with all heart, you're playing like Stevie Ray Vaughan. And when you're playing with a lot of intellect, maybe you're playing like John Coltrane, you know. But Coltrane combined intellect, heart, and soul just as well as Stevie did. So it's a weird kind of way to explain it. The main thing that I want to get across in this short little disclaimer before you start studying is that the emotive quality, the emotion, and the push of emotion through these notes and through the guitar and into these shapes, you can ignore the intellectual process completely and just play. Okay, I'm going back and analyzing this stuff after I play something what I thought was artistically interesting over this chord progression. I'm now going back and analyzing it afterwards. So, you know, make sure that you value the idea of just letting go and playing as much as you do, or more maybe even, than the intellectual depth that is going to be this lesson. All right, jumping right in with phrase 1, we have the harmony of an A major over beats 1 and 2 in the first measure, 3 and 4 of the first measure of C sharp minor, and then in measure 2, where the phrase ends, we have a D chord, which is a 4 chord of A. A is our resolving harmony, and D is 4, so unresolved. So when we hear that line, here's the D chord, and it resolves down to that E of an A major chord. If it was an A major chord in that measure, it would sound very resolved. But because in measure 2 we have a D, that do doesn't sound as resolved. And it creates a sense of conflict resolution with the long arcing phrase where we're playing, you know, something that typically goes over 4 measures. In this second measure, we're hearing conflict, not resolution. Okay, so this is not in rock and roll, is typically not thought about as much, I don't think, as maybe in jazz or in classical music. So this rock and roll melody, and because of the inherent harmony included, we have a nice sense of conflict resolution. And in this second measure, it's not resolved. Even though it lands on the E of an A, we're over a D chord. so it's not resolved. All right, let's hear the phrase. So here are measures 1 and 2 with the backing track to give harmonic context. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. All right, let's hear it again with the harmony one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So hopefully you can hear how there's a sense of suspension and unresolution there over that D. This is a quality that sets us up to be able to create resolve lines as we move forward. All right, so let's take a look at the inner workings of this phrase. Each of these phrases with the right hand, you can count on downstrokes as being something that will orient you better if you use all downs. If you're feeling lost, use all downstrokes, or you can use down up. That's going to apply to every phrase. So let's jump into phrase 1 with the left hand. We've got an F sharp to A, or 11 on G string, 10 on the B string, implying our harmony with fingers 2 and 1. And it's kind of a pick up, excuse me, to the next measure. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the 16th notes there, downbeat on measure 1 is bending up from the B to a C sharp. So a chord tone of A. These are all chord tones of A. So we have our A outline right there at the beginning. Bending up from B to C sharp, you're going to bend with 2 fingers from B to C sharp, tune it by going up to C sharp and bending up to that tone. Okay? Now, when we get to the C sharp minor on the second beat, I'm coming down on what feels natural. We have from the bend where I'm coming down and playing a pull off really from that 12 to 10 right there, from B back to B. Now that melody is strong and it lands on the B, which is not a chord tone of C sharp minor. Technically it's the flat 7 of C sharp minor. So sort of that sound. And that non-chord tone on that chord right there is fine because we're in the middle of the phrase and we have conflict going, so it works really well. And it's just down to a 3. And then we have some implied D harmony on the and of beat 4 and measure 1. We have the D and the F sharp and the D of that E shape of D. So when it goes to the D chord, we kind of implied it melodically in measure 1. And we're playing from that 11 F sharp to D and then sliding down with 1 from 10 to 9, 12 to 10 with 3, 1, and then 11 to 9 with the F sharp to E. So in full, we got and you can do pull-offs there or not. Or you can do pull-offs. All right, let's check this phrase out with the metronome. Okay, so the first way we're going to practice this line is we're going to go through and just count in every single time. And we'll count in 2 dead measures for a couple of examples. And then I'm going to give some examples of just looping this melody. When you know it well enough, you can loop it. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's hear it again. with a nice strong counting in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. I played it a little differently that time. I did a pull off and then I plucked those two notes. Now let's hear the melody looped, and every time I loop it, I might do a little bit different. Pull off or strike, or pull off, strike, or strike, pull off. That's the variation that you can of techniques that you can apply to this lick if you want to. All right, let's loop it 3 or 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I looped it. I think the way that I applied the techniques is I did all pull-offs and then all strikes and then a pull-off strike and then a strike pull-off. You know, but it's nice to be able to master techniques like hammer-ons and pull-offs with fun music like this. So it gives you a chance to practice the technique of hammer-on pull-off in the context of something kind of cool instead of just an exercise or a scale. All right, next up with our little mini phrases here is we have a pickup at the end of measure 2, the same exact pickup we had into the first phrase, but now it's at the end of measure 2, and we're playing through measures 3 and 4, resolving to the E on beat 3 in measure 4 over an E major chord. So this creates, with this particular line, we have a sense of resolution that's strong down to that E. We hear that as a very strong resolution over that E chord. Okay, so this phrase, the little 2-measure phrase, has a slightly stronger resolution than the last one. Now, the difference, the thing that's notable about this 2-measure phrase in the overall harmonic context is you have this A in measure 3 to C sharp in measure 3 to that E in measure 4. And yes, the melody comes down and resolves strong to that E, but because the E chord is the 5 of A, in our harmonic, in the storytelling, overall arcing storytelling aspect of this, or if you look at it as like a 4-measure phrase, we still feel like we're in the middle of the story. We haven't come to an end of the story yet because we're not resolved to A. So that sense of unresolution over the E provides for the context of the story to remain active. We're still in motion here. All right, so let's take a look at the inner workings of this lick. Again, we're coming in on beat 4 with that same pickup. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the same bend on the downbeat of measure 3 as we had on the downbeat of measure 1, where we're bending up from B to C sharp. Now the difference in this bend is that I'm grabbing this E with my pinky for a double stop bend. I always love those double stop bends because they seem to bring an energy to the music. There's a quality of, I don't know if it's screaminess on the guitar or what, but it just adds a little extra spice to have those bends together like that. I mean, a bend and a double stop. So it adds, this is a variation on the first line. It's almost exactly the same, but by adding that extra note, we get some extra energy in there, an extra punch. And then it comes back down again the same. We're over A right now, using chord tones to C sharp and E are all chord tones. Then we come to rest again on that B over the C sharp. So it's a C sharp minor 7 kind of sound. It's unresolved again in beat 3 of measure 3. And then as we're going into the E, we're doing the same, almost the same pickup on beat 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the tied over C sharp there, that is an unresolved quality over E, but then we immediately get to a B note and a G sharp, which are all parts of the E chord. And we emphasize that G sharp and the F sharp with a slight bend. It could be a full, or it could be a half bend, or it could be a quarter bend. Any of those work right there. It's not right or wrong if you don't get the full bend. You can practice it that way by tuning up from the F sharp down like that. But you know, you can get away with a half bend sounds bluesy, and a quarter sounds bluesy as well. It can be a soulful angst that you get out of those two notes not blending very well, and creating tension can be a part of the emotion. It doesn't have to be precise, right? With the G sharps lining up, okay? And then we're resolving down to that E in a strong fashion over the E major chord. Again, with this one, we could do a pull off right there, and is in the pickup from measure 3 to measure 4. Could be a slide down to G sharp. Could be a pull off. You know, you could do a lot of pull offs in there. I find that to be counterintuitive. It feels a little strange, but there you have it. Those are all the options and the harmonic values associated with this line and what makes it work. Oh, and the last thing I want to say about this line, when we get over the E, I avoid the A note. You know, I outline the G sharp. I'm not hitting. To me, that sounds weaker because I've included that A. It just outlines stronger E by avoiding the A and accentuating that G sharp instead. Okay, that was definitely purposeful on my part. All right, so let's take a listen to this lick over the backing track. We're actually going to be coming in right at the beginning of the backing track where the harmony begins for a 2-measure pickup. So there's a 2-measure pickup of me counting, and I'm playing over the actual part of the form where this melody hits, so that we can hear how each little harmonic device lends itself to resolving to E stronger, or using that C sharp bent up with the E to get the harmonic push over that A major chord. Here we go. Here's the example. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's hear it again. You can slow it down if you need to. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. Let's move on to practicing it with the metronome. All right, so let's have a couple versions of playing this with just the drum machine or just a metronome and counting in with 2 strong measures of counting in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, again, we're going to do it with just counting in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now let's loop it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the next phrase over measure 5 and 6 is the exact same statement that we made in measures 1 and 2. The only difference is the pickup goes to A and not back to F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in this phrase, I'm keeping the bend with that double stop. The rest of it is exactly the same, okay? So I think two things to consider with this phrase. I think intuitively by keeping the double stop, I'm not losing energy. To me, the double stop bends have so much energy that by including them in this repetition, I'm keeping the energy high, but also going back and saying the same thing that I did before. And I think too, on that note, that when you're looking at this phrase, the repetition that's included implies the fact that I feel good about the melody. And I think the repetition makes the first melody even stronger. And it also gives the listener something to lean on. So when they're listening to you play, they have something that they can theoretically sing along with, even though maybe they've never heard it before. Maybe you're improvising, this thing, and it's not actually a composition, you're improvising, and your use of repetition will help the listener feel comfortable and involved because they can follow the repetition easier. So the power of repetition in improvising and composing is a very strong element that you should embrace. Okay, it's not that you're saying something again because you don't have anything new to say. You're saying something again because what you said was strong enough to say it again. Okay, and that quality and composition is, it's felt and used through the ages of all genres. So embrace repetition. Okay, so in the measures 6 to 7, we have a harmonic motion that creates a sense of awe and mystery. And the way that we do that is we're moving from a key signature or chords with F sharp in it to a chord with F natural and C naturals in it. So that sense of moving from sounds somewhat mysterious. If I listen to the resolving harmony, that D chord is the 4 chord of A. So we've been kind of thinking or hearing A is the resolving harmony as the melodies are going from measures 1 to measure 6. So let's take a listen of A to A major to F natural. That creates a nice sense of mystery as well. The common note A is in both chords. But the reason there's mystery is because the A chord has a C sharp in it and an E, which moves up to the F. You have, and the C sharp moves down to a C natural and the E to an F. And it creates smooth chord changing and the A stays. And that smooth transition we're hearing as the chords move even in these big bar chord shapes. So there's this smooth voice leading, and there's a sense of mystery because we have a bunch of new notes. Okay? Now in measure 7, when we start the F, we go from F to C, then we resolve to G. So now we've moved from A to resolving in G, which in my students' original piece that we're working this out of, it's in the key of G. So we're moving from the key of A back to the key of G. But in the context of this recording, we just hear it as F to C to G. Okay, and it's a great harmonic idea to add a new key signature to something and create a sense of mystery by changing keys. All right, so let's take a look at the melodic content for measure 7 and 8, where we're changing keys, going to in measure 7 with a chord F over beats 1 and 2, C over beats 3 and 4, and resolving to G in measure 8. So the terminology that I'm going to be using, I have found in my studies of classical music and of jazz. They talk about it in the same way. You have in measure, the pickup into measure 7 is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is what would be called surrounding tones, where we have tones that are, this is the chord tone that we're resolving to. And I am coming out of a D chord, so I start on a D, but I just use neighboring tones below and above F to surround it on the pickup and then land on that chord tone of F. Okay, so that's what I would call surrounding tones. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but that's the concept there. And then we have, which is a neighboring tone down to F to E, and that E is the third of C major, of course. And that rhythm that we're using there, we went from swinging 16th notes, 3, 4, to triplets. And that rhythm, da, 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 creates a certain amount of energy. So we have 2, 3, 4, da, 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 right? And that to me has this rhythmic push. And then on beat 4 of measure 7, I'm already anticipating the G harmony. Okay, so I play that D with a B flat sliding up to B over beat 4 of that C major chord. So you have this quality of harmonic dissonance happening at the end of that measure. It's not, here's a C major chord, and here's a C with a D and a B in it. You know, there's some dissonance there. Then it resolves to G in measure 8 with that G over G. But that really to me is just, I'm just playing out of the key of G already on beat 4 in measure 7. That's a trick that I use all the time, and it works wonderfully. When I want to resolve to G in the measure before, at some point I'll already be thinking G and head to the downbeat with a chord tone. Okay? And then in the measure 8 we have another little B to D with a B flat sliding down to A with that unresolved A down to the G over a G chord. So that's outlining B and D and G, the chord tones, and that little bluesy slide for some soulful effect. Okay, so just to review really quickly, we have surrounding tones, neighboring tones, with a triplet feel with a neighboring tone resolving to a chord tone, thinking G over C, resolving to G, with a bluesy little lick resolving down to the G again. So very typical harmonic stuff, chord tones happening, and a lot of the neighboring tone type qualities that I've learned over the years and now incorporate into my own playing. Okay, so let's hear this phrase with the backing track for harmonic reference after we've talked about it. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's do it again one more time, same spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Moving on to just with the metronome. All right, so let's hear this lick, measure 7 and 8, pick up into measure 7 and 8 with the metronome with strong counting in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, one more time with strong counting in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Looping the lick with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's look at the harmonic value of 9 and 10. And in looking at 9 and 10, we're going to look at the whole form. So measures 9 and 10 essentially are a repetition of 7 and 8. So in 7 and 8, we have F to C to G. And then in 9 and 10, we go back to F for 2 beats, C for 2 beats, and G. Okay, now that repetition, as we've discussed before, repetition creates a sense of familiarity. It also strengthens the harmonic value and the melodic content of what we're saying. It says that we really mean it. And so that quality of really meaning F, C to G is something that happens here as a result of this repetition. But I think there's something else happening here that we need to take a look at that's a deeper thing going on with the phrasing of this form. So if we look at the full phrase, we've done 2 measure phrases. We've done pick up into measure 1 and 2, pick up into measure 3 and 4. And then the next phrase was 5 and 6. The next phrase is 7 and 8. Now, and when we got to 7 is when we had the mysterious key change. Now, how that works is fine. And you have the repetition of 9 and 10 to reinforce what we did in 7 and 8. But if we look at it as 4 measure phrases, then we really see how this introduction of the new key matters as much as it does. And I probably should have mentioned it already, but I'm just now actually realizing I need to mention it. So here it is. The first full measure, 4 measure phrase, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we go in the key of A, from A to C sharp to D to measure 2, and then A to C sharp to E in measure 4. And when we hear that E, because we've been trained to hear it this way, most of the time E goes back to A, and we hear it going back to A, and we do. In measure 5, we do the same thing as measures 1 and 2. And this 4 measure phrase, though, now becomes completely different when we change keys in the middle of the phrase. We go to F, C, and G. And so in the middle of that 4 measure structure is when we change keys. And that makes that key change that much more surprising when we hear it. It brings in the awe and mystery, because we are actually, whether you know it or not, you're used to hearing music over 4 measure phrases. And for the key to change in the middle of the phrase creates excitement. Now, then measure 9 and 10 are a tag for the form. So the same way you have a tag at the end of a piece where you repeat a little bit of the ending to end the piece and make it sound strong, we have measures 9 and 10 as a tag to the 4 measure phrase from measures 5 to 8. We tag it with 9 and 10 to create that sense of ending for the solo. So you could look at the repetition in several different ways, right? No matter the way you look at it, the repetition of 9 and 10 coming back in strengthens this form. It creates repetition that strengthens the sense of, like, we want to hear F, C, and G. Yes, I like that. Let me repeat it again. The melodic content is a repetition, just an octave down. So we have that sense of familiarity that the listener is going to enjoy. And then we have that sense of the form ends in measure 8, but hey, here's a tag to actually really lead us to the end of this form in the solo. And then we're back in the original key is what the composer wanted to do. So this is how I constructed the solo for him. is to change the keys back to the original key of G. So it's important to see measures 9 and 10, I think, in both ways, so that you can relate to it in a way that's consistent with how music is typically phrased. 4-measure phrases and how we play with harmony to create a sense of surprise, awe, and mystery. All right, awesome. Let's move on to the next portion of the lesson. Okay, so let's take a look at the specific melodic content from measures 9 and 10. We have a pickup from measure 8 with E, G, and it's E, G, F. If you played it on one string, it would look like this. But I play on 2 strings just because it feels good. That feels a little awkward. That feels great. It's really natural to play it from the 4th string and the 5th string. 5th string, 4th, 5th string, 4th string. E, G, E, F. So we have surrounding tones. Again, surrounding tones. Similar to that F, right, from the last lick. It's almost the exact mirrored phrase or melodic content, just slightly changed a little bit. Then we have the exact same thing on beat 2 of measure 9. We have the triplet. Right? 1, 2, 3. Da, da, da. That triplet with this is just an octave down. F, G, F to the 3rd of C. So we're doing a neighboring tone thing again here, but we have that 1, 2, 3, 4, ba da 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 da, right? That rhythmic thing of the triplet, making it really feel like an umph type of rhythm thing right there. And then we're going down. We're going to do it like almost like a bluegrass lick. Open string, B flat, pull off down to A to end on that G right there on measure 10. So again, I think on beat 4 here in measure 9, I'm thinking G, but we're still on the C chord, but I'm anticipating that G by starting in the G shape on beat 4 of the measure before it for a pickup note that resolves to beat 1. And then we have the resolution of sliding up from B flat to B to the G. And I specifically chose this one on the 4th string because that one sounds too loud and that one's slightly softer. So that final resolution has this nice tucked in feel where that note's nice and soft. It's not brazenly out in your face. Right? It's just slightly softer. So again, we have a mirrored image from measures 7 and 8. Oh, excuse me. And we have, again, with repetition, making sure that the audience knows that we really mean what we play. We got a lot of repetition in this one. And then just finishing with a nice soft G on that G chord. All right, cool. So let's get on to working on it with the metronome and the backing track. All right, so let's hear it with the backing track for a little bit of harmonic relevance. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, one more time with the backing track for harmonic quality. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's hear it with the metronome with a strong count in 2 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, one more time with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. All right, let's loop it with the metronome 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's look at this in 4 measure phrases. So with the 4 measure phrase, the first one goes from measure 1 to measure 4. And we have the chords for that are A, C sharp to D in measure 2, then A, C sharp to E in measure 4. It sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. And that is the end of that phrase. It ends on the E, which is unresolved, right? You hear that E, you want it to go back to A. That's where we hear this harmony resolving. Okay, it's where it starts, and that's where our ear wants it to resolve. That's why when we get to measure 7, it goes to F, does something unexpected. It's so nice. But right now, with this phrase, we're ending on the 5 chord in measure 4, which is great because that leaves the door open for lots of new things to be said. We definitely are not finished yet because this story, we're right in the middle of it where there's no resolution. Okay? All right, that's the harmonic quality of this phrase. Let's take a look very quickly again at the notes. Okay, so let's look at the melodic content really quickly. We did it with the 2 measure phrases, so if you want to get into more detail, then go back and look at the 2 measure phrases. The main things that we're looking at here is that on beat 1 of measure 1, we have a chord tone of A C sharp. Then on beat 2, we have a note that sounds great, but it is not a part of the fundamental chord of C sharp minor, so it's unresolved. And then we have that two notes at the end of beat measure 1 anticipates the D, but when we get into D, I'm playing A major again. And it sounds like a line that should be in an A major chord, but I'm actually playing it over the D. And it works really well for several reasons. One, the line is strong, it resolves strong, the statement is not floppy, but it also does not need to be resolved here. We're in the 2nd measure of the phrase, so the phrase is still charging through storytelling. And when we get into the 3rd measure of the phrase, we're repeating again. But now we've got an E in there with that C sharp, which E is a chord tone for A. Down to the B again, over the C sharp minor, which is again unresolved. And then we have a big resolution to our E chord to an E. Right there on measure 4. So the trajectory of this first melodic content brings us into a lot of unresolved spots until we get to the middle of that E chord. Right? And we're very, very, very resolved there and confident. Now we hear that E going back to A, which we do in measure 5. And so, but measure 5, it starts the next 4 measure phrase. So I'm not going to talk about it yet. Okay, so now we're going to get to where we can play this first phrase just with the metronome. I'm not going to use the backing track this time because when you start getting to the phrases, it's just really long, and you can't access that on YouTube, but you can access the drum machine to practice it. So here we go. First 4 measure phrase with the drum machine. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's hear it again. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so for the thrill of the skill, let's go ahead and loop this phrase a couple of times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, the drums stopped on me. I guess that's enough times. Okay, so when we're talking about the next phrase, 5 through 8, I think the important way to look at this is that the next phrase, 5 through 8, has a tag on it, 9 and 10. Now, the reason the tag is there to me as a musician and as a composer inherently is when we go from A to F, in terms of key change to that C to G, it tastes so good, it sounds so good that I just want another bite, right? I got to get a little bit more of that F, C to G because it just felt so good to go there in the first place. It's like having, a slice of cheesecake for dessert and it was just so good you got to go back for a second slice. Or a really great slice of pizza, man, I got to get another one because it was just so good. So that tag operates, I think, like that in the repetition of this form is the F to C to G sounds so great, why not do it again? Also, I think it's important to mention in the context of this solo, when we go to the F as the new harmonic area resolving to G, we're actually going down a step in the music. So we're going from A and we're eventually going to resolve to G, but we go through F. So it goes down to F to C down to G, from A whole step down to G. And this quality of going down works well for the end of the solo because the solo is now ending. The story that we've been telling over this A major harmonic area is now coming to a close. And this movement of harmony going down helps us to do that. Here's an example is if it goes up and we get here and we go up to B. Right? It gets more exciting. Oh, we're going to a new place now. The solo's not over. They caught us by surprise and we're going a step higher. Right? That's just fun, man. It's inspiring. It feels like the energy is being pulsated into the piece by stepping up. Right? But in this case, the composer is wanting to get back to the original key of G, and we're moving from A back to G, so it just is convenient. When we go through this F to C to G, it creates a harmonic story of coming to a close. It's really, really a nice harmonic device for the sake of this solo. All right, so when we're analyzing this melodic content, the first thing that we're going to talk about is repetition. I mean, man, we are confident as the composer. We're repeating the same melodic content. Again, we feel strongly about it, and we're letting the audience know. And the listeners, the audience, the listener, can follow along. They're hearing that again, and it creates familiarity, right? Then we have our neighboring tones, surrounding tones, neighboring tone. Then we're anticipating on the last measure of last beat of measure 7 with some G content to resolve the G, but that content was over the C chord. And then that lick is just chord tones. B, G, resolving down to G. G, B, D. Right? And then as we repeat in the tag, we have the same melodic content that we heard. That same content, just an octave down. 2, 3, 4. Okay? So it sounds pretty much the same. A little bit different notes there. Same exact notes there. Resolving to a G through the blues scale. Instead of going back up to G, I went down. I could have gone. And I do go back up, but for the final resolution, we go back up. Is an exact mirror of that particular lick, except it's rhythmically, in a different spot. We have resolving to beat 3, and this one resolves to beat 1. So we have a lot of repetition in octave form, Right? So, yeah, the repetition in this melodic content creates the strength of the melodic content to me. It says that, again, that we are confident in our choices. It gives the listener a sense of familiarity, easy to follow along with. We're not trying to wow them or blow them away with some kind of like fast, crazy thing to play. We're bringing them into the content and letting them experience it with us. We're making the music accessible and open. And I think that's really very important quality to this overall melodic content and all this, is that it's accessible and easy for the listener to participate and listen to. All right, so let's just hear this final phrase and tag one time through with the drums. We'll do it 2 times, counting in. That'll be it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's hear it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.